something that we'll probably show, I think we'll try to show tomorrow. Off on a different tangent. This is a product you can actually buy. Anybody's been following news groups and whatnot, and aware of our monitor crisis. Here is a component video adapter. It goes from 15-pin analog or any other variety of analog that's 15 hertz, because you can just, it's designed to be used both ways. But this one will work right off the back of the 2GS. It's a component video. I was running it last night. It's got some issues with certain types of monitors. It doesn't seem to want to work with all of them. I'm going to send email back. This is from the Sheeta Radio, Japan. And I believe the cost will be it's about, depending on the yen, $40 to $60 delivered. Quite reasonable. Yeah, and 80 column looked just crisp as RGB on the LCD. Didn't seem to have weird banding or anything else. So that was quite impressive. The 2E version, similar card, goes in the auxiliary slot. Now this is a drawback because this doesn't have any RAM on it or anything. And of course, you can't even do double high res because you've got no RAM. Now there is a connector back here that says extend. It's only 10 pin. I'm not sure what all you could do with that. And I'm going to talk to him about this and see. My first thought was I'm just going to take it and wire it up to go on the back of the board like the RamWorks card. And once I do that, I'll probably send him here. This exact design worked, so now you can relay it out and do it. Again, this component video. Component video is essentially composite-like or S-video-like, red, green, and blue. So it's giving 3 separate feeds, so the monitor can process it a lot nicer. Again, the result is quite nice. The component is probably not going anywhere for a while, although it is kind of short-lived. It came out about the time the original Xbox came out. It's had about 4 or 5 years shelf span, but it's not most of the.
So every HD TV I've ever looked
yeah,
at
everything has it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you made it.
So
it's neither RGB nor YGB. It's yellow, yellow minus, red, yellow minus,
yeah.
blue.
And then, but they conveniently use reddish, greenish, and bluish looking colors.
Yeah.
So you think you're 3 componenting it, but you're doing it in a different direction. Yeah. Anyway, that is I'll have these plugged in again, because we got one monitor that actually works with both of them quite well. Like the TV upstairs, the big one on the wall, won't sync. The screen shows, but the TV doesn't quite realize it's happening, so it keeps trying to say it's component 2, but I'm not ready yet. So it hides the menu bar on the 2GS, for example. That doesn't help very much. Anyway, that is that, and I'll have information out on where to get these and whatnot later. Anybody have any questions about anything?
Make sure you've got
What's
all
the GS
channels.
ROM 0 board? And I got one of those. That was my first GS, and it was upgraded to a ROM 1 machine. They pulled out some.
The ROM 0 to the 2GS to ROM 1 upgrade, essentially. There was no 0 because it's not labeled. But the ROM chip changes, the VGC changes, and that's it. It's the same board. VGC fixes an issue with double high res on a composite monitor. It came out monochrome, even if it was selected color, or it came out color one or the other way. But basically, the output was one was glitched, had a few imperfect pixel areas. 2 did not respect the control panel setting at certain times. So they fixed that. The biggest change being the ROM. If you're only going to ever operate on the back, you don't need the VGC. You're only going to plug on the RGB. You don't need it. You'll never notice it. No software. There's nothing that software can do to it. It's all strictly the other side of the firewall listening all that.
I have I don't know if this is going anywhere interesting or not, but I have a disk for diagnosing and formatting a Nisha drive. Do you know what this is?
Disk for which?
Nisha. I think it was like the successor to Profile that never made it anywhere. I've seen one clear case. Is that something you've ever even heard of?
No.
The successor to the profile would have been was the 20 meg that's on the Mac, and the floppy port one, which at one point was going to be referred to as the Profile 20. And I guess they departed from the whole profile line and just HD20 called it that. I have two of them in component form only that work on an Apple IIc and a 3 through the floppy port. But the actual shipping version does not. But interestingly enough, if I were to format the drive on this version and stick it in the release one, it will work.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
But you can't format a drive from a 2 or 3 on the new one. So they basically removed it or whatever, just probably overlooked it. But the old one will recognize it. But the board is completely different. Doesn't have socketed chips the same way. It's actually got what they're called quad flat pack, but it's ceramic with the die on top inside of a clip down clamp down socket. That's what's on the thing. And the shipboard doesn't even have that. Just got EEPROMs and almost that surface mount stuff on. Anything else?
No, I've used the Highway 100 on my 2GS, and it works great with 2GS video. But then when I hook it up to the PC transport output, it doesn't work. Have you tested that one with like PC transporter?
Well, no, actually I haven't bothered with PC transporter. PC transporter is supposed to be passed through, except for when it's generating kind of a CGA signal that it's converting into RGB.
Yeah.
Incidentally, here is another piece of advice, monitor-wise. Okay, if you come across a CGA or EGA monitor, and you'd like to use it on an Apple II, and you're not afraid of these things with the hot tips and the screwdrivers and fun stuff like that, you can pretty much figure this out with most any EGA, CGA monitor. VGA, multi-sync VGAs will work straight out of the box as long as they scan down to the right frequency. But an EGA, CGA will also work, provided you remove something. What you're basically going to do is you want to get the CGA, EGA pin out, RGB, and sync. The monitor may have horizontal and vertical sync, in which case combine them and put them on this composite sync that's on the 2GS. So you're going to trace in the color lines, red, green, and blue. A lot of times the wires even have the colors marked, and sometimes the wire is even the right color when you look inside the cable and you see the connector broken out. The signals will be red, green, and blue wire. How convenient. And then they'll be wrapped, that's the sync for them, or the ground. So if you follow the traces in to the first component you find, typically the first IC that the signal hits, that is going to probably be a digital to analog converter. CGA is digital. Now you look up the spec to that chip. You can always find all this stuff online. You search for an IC data sheet. It's almost as bad as searching for other things on the internet. You get way more hits than you want, but you can find one. And essentially what you're going to do is you're going to look at the chip, and what you're doing is you're actually going backwards on it. But you're going to see that where your blue wire hooks up, there is a corresponding pin to it. Red, green, and blue, etc. You want to remove the chip from the monitor and jump those wires as if it wasn't even there. Put the cable back on, change the end, you have now an RGB monitor. Too bad it doesn't work with LCD screens, but you can use CGA and EGA monitors that way. And it also works with arcade machines and whatnot too. Coincidentally, arcade monitors also work on the Apple II. So they're all, so if you find an old arcade monitor, another source for monitors. So an arcade LCD would also work. Anything else? I think lunchtime beckons. Oh, yeah.
Well, make sure you get the stuff you send around back.
It's over there somewhere. It's not going anywhere. Alrighty, I guess lunch beckons. I don't know what time it is, but.
Thank you.